Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Councilmember Jim, for those introductions. It's a real honor to participate in one of my favorite Emily's List traditions, a conversation with this year's Gabby Giffords Rising Star nominees. And wait until you meet them. You've heard a little bit about them, but we're going to have a chance to really talk with them about what they think is going on. And we want to start with Judge Lina Hidalgo. Uh, you know, I'm lucky enough to know you. I was in Houston shortly after you had your great victory as county judge of one of our biggest counties in the entire country. And you really broke barriers when you were elected, Lina. You became the first woman, the first Latina to become a Harris County judge. Can you share a little bit about how your own life experiences spurred you on, first of all, to run, and as you were campaigning, and have shaped your identity and what you do as a leader?
Yes, thank you, Secretary. And first of all, it's such an honor to share this stage with you. And I think we can all agree that women and girls in this country, but also around the world, live better lives because of the work you have done and continue to do. And so thank you. And thank you also to Emily's List for lifting all of us up and incredible powerhouses like Representative O'Meara and Representative Nguyen. It's wonderful to be with you all. Uh, Look, I was born in Colombia at the height of the drug war, and so I saw very much what broken government looks like, what corruption looks like. I lived and worked in countries that were facing these kinds of challenges of a lack of accountability. Came to the United States when I was almost 14, and I was going to public school for the first time, didn't know what to expect, and I was happened to be zoned to this incredible public school here in the outskirts of Houston. It was just impressive, that not just the school itself, but the quality of the teaching and the sports teams and everything. And it made me wonder, why is it that government can work here and now and it doesn't work in other places? So that's really been the experience that I've brought with me, first in my studies and my work in government accountability, but eventually in as I decided to run for office, that focus on good government, that focus on participation, the recognition that ultimately budgets themselves should reflect priorities and values of the community. In my job, as you know, I'm not a judicial judge, so to speak. I'm the executive of Harris County, despite the name of county judge. I'm the executive, so I help manage a $5 billion budget in this, the third largest county in the country. So what I've done is really focus on the things that reflect those values. Obviously, voting and participation, early childhood education as opposed to juvenile detention and incarceration, and just good government, good budgeting practices, participatory government, creative solutions on everything from homelessness to veteran services to infrastructure. All of it comes from that lens of good government.
Well, that's a great story, and you've been doing an amazing job. I'm really proud of everything you've been able to accomplish. And now let me turn to Representative Jennifer O'Meara. And, Jennifer, you've been a longtime advocate. You're now in the Pennsylvania legislature. You have been advocating there, like you did before you were elected, to end gun violence, inspired in part by a family tragedy when you were very young. How did that and your other experiences lead you to where you are today and what you're really focused on doing as an elected official?
Well, thank you very much, Secretary Clinton. I can say with 100% certainty, if it wasn't for you, I never would have ran for office in the first place. And I also want to recognize the women that are here along with me. You all inspire me every day. So when I decided to run for office, it was because my husband and I felt like my lived experiences could do well in a government that seemed to lose sight of working people. When I was 13, my dad, who was a career firefighter in Philadelphia, died by gun suicide. And my mom, a now single mom with 3 kids, a high school diploma, and a wage gap of 15 years, needed to figure out how to take care of us. And if it wasn't for things like public schools and CHIP, which we can also thank you for, or my mom getting a job as a union school bus driver, which gave her decent wages and benefits, my family would not have survived. I became a first-generation college student and used student loans to help me graduate from a state school. In 2016, after that presidential election that we don't want to talk about, my husband is a combat veteran and a reformed Republican, gave me the idea to run for office. And after a few months, realizing that my district had not been represented by a woman in longer than I've been alive, and that there were not enough young people speaking at the table in Harrisburg, I decided to go for it. And now I am really focused on strengthening public schools, on making sure that we are doing something to address gun violence, focusing on mental health and breaking the stigma that so commonly surrounds suicide and any discussion around mental health. And I try and use my personal story to connect with people and help them understand that, I'm coming at this with the idea of helping others and using government as a force of good. So thank you.
Well, Jennifer, that story is so powerful and touching. And I think using that lived experience is what we all mean when we say we want a government that looks like us and also understands us and represents us. And your work and your commitment to trying to use what your family went through as a way of lifting up other families is such a great message. I want to turn now to Representative Tram Nguyen from Massachusetts, who also made history when you became the first Vietnamese American to serve in the Massachusetts legislature. How has your background helped you find your purpose and strength as a leader, as well as a trailblazer?
Oh, thank you so much, Secretary. And speaking of trailblazers, I'm just so inspired by all of you as trailblazers and everything that you do, and you continue to inspire me and so many other young girls out there who need to see what they want to be. And that's exactly what you, especially Secretary, have been doing for so long. And I'm truly grateful for Emily's List for inviting me to be a part of this panel. And also congratulations to Judge Hidalgo for winning this award. In talking about my work and how I got started, I have to say that my purpose and strength comes from my parents. I came to the United States when I was 5 years old as a political refugee with my family, and my father served in the South Vietnam military alongside US soldiers and served 8 years in a re-education camp. And so in the early 90s, when we came here, we had less than $100 to our name. And I saw my parents working multiple jobs, having to learn English and doing everything that they could to provide for their children. And in seeing that, it gave me purpose to advocate for working families. I lived in public housing. I'm also, like Representative Omar, as a first-generation college attendee, and I understand the fears and the language barriers and just so many barriers that are in the way of vulnerable people, of people who really just need a chance and investment in. And when you invest in vulnerable people, it comes back 100-fold, 1,000-fold, and that's what I'm committed to doing. So I decided to become a legal services attorney with Greater Boston Legal Services, advocating for workers, immigrants, victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. And I saw how policies impact the most vulnerable among us and started working on policies to address racial, social, and economic justice. And that was when I realized that I was represented by a representative, far-right Tea Party Republican, who really didn't stand for any of these things that I cared so much about and really didn't share the same values. And that was what gave me purpose to run for the seat. I could say that I never thought I was ever going to be in elected office, never mind the very first Vietnamese American woman to ever hold elected office. But here we are, because I am committed to making sure that we are bringing different voices to the table and that we're amplifying voices that are often not heard so that we can come to well-rounded policies that could uh, uplift everyone and make sure that we don't leave anyone behind. And that is the lens that I continue to take with me in my work and all that I do. And I surprised everyone winning on a progressive platform in a pretty conservative area to be the very first, I think, person of color to ever represent this district. And I'm really proud of the progress that we've made, and will continue to do what I can to build a more welcoming community for all.
That's a great phrase, a welcoming unity. I mean, we need to try to bring people together, don't we? All of this divisiveness and disinformation and all these conspiracy theories that unfortunately we are seeing in our country right now really raises questions about how we're going to bring people together, how we can work with those who actually deny reality. And you all were elected in 2018, which was not just a wave, it really was a sea change in women's leadership at all levels in our government, which was thrilling. But a lot has happened since then, and for the communities that you serve, and we've all gone through this really difficult pandemic year. How have you each been able to stay focused, to deal with the disturbing trend of big lies and a sense of dismissal and contempt for people who are different, and of course the return of a concerted effort at voter suppression? There's a lot going on right now. Let's start with you, Representative O'Mara.
Well, I think I try and approach problems and find ways that I can help directly. Being in office during COVID-19 was not something I ever imagined for my life, but I tried to utilize the strengths in my community to sort of overcome the differences that we are dealing with, and to try to bring people together at a time when we really needed to remember we were in this together. I started a food drive, I want to say, program in the county. We started collecting food on the weekends and delivering it to pantries. So we were feeding families right in our area. I found myself representing a county, the largest county in the country, with no public health department. As we started COVID-19, this is after having years and years, centuries of Republican control. And so we had to fight harder to get the resources here to make sure we had enough vaccines. I volunteered myself in vaccine clinics and helped get my own friends and neighbors vaccinated. So I try not to get overwhelmed by the national noise, stay focused on my community, and do things and with my own, find my own way to bring my strength to the table, and tried to really be a force for good again in a time when we needed that, and we were all so lost and depressed, frankly.
That's a great answer, Jennifer. I mean, talking about taking on what you can actually address and building those accomplishments, that really is a great approach to public service. And Judge Hidalgo, let me ask you, this has been a really tough year for Texas. I mean, you guys have had natural disasters, you've had man-made disasters or exacerbated disasters because of bad management and leadership. What's it been like leading this huge county, as you say, third largest in the entire country, through several crises at once? How have you tried to, figure out where your attention and energy should be focused, and how best to communicate what you're doing to the very large constituency that you serve?
So statutorily, aside from being the county executive, I'm also the director of emergency management for Harris County. I've been in office since January 2019, so just over 2 years. And in that time, you're right. I mean, we've had massive chemical fires. We have a lot of industry here in Harris County, massive petrochemical industry. So we've had these huge chemical fires. We've had 2 floods. We had a hurricane during COVID, of course, and then the winter storm this past February, where we lost power for a very long time, had many deaths, and the power grid just completely failed. And what I've learned is look, you can't prepare for every emergency because you don't know what's going to happen. the best thing you can do is have a great team then that can be nimble and creative and work well together and look after the most vulnerable. But even when you do that, there come times in which there really is no precedent, no manual of any kind. When it comes to a hurricane, we've done it so many times. We roughly know what we're doing, and there may be a surprise here or there, but generally you kind of got it. With COVID, nobody in leadership was alive when the 1918 pandemic hit. And so it was about making the absolute best decision I could with information that was by definition incomplete. And so number one, it's a commitment to erring on the side of information, of being real with the community, not sugarcoating things, and being very clear about what we know and we don't know. And number two, and perhaps I should have put this first because I think it's the most important, is really having a North Star as far as a commitment to what is best for the community. These decisions about when and whether to shut things down, mask order, how to roll out vaccinations philosophically, right? How do you do it? I mean, I've consulted with experts and, ethicists and philosophers and epidemiologists and doctors, but they're complicated enough even without the politics in them. So what I've really fought to do is to not even let politics inside my decision making when it comes to the pandemic, and it's made things so much easier. Things like how do you deal with COVID in this huge county jail or the detention facility, the juvenile detention facilities. I mean, it's complex enough. So I've done that. I feel very proud of the decisions I've made, and then that also is part of the leadership strategy outside of emergencies. So part of what I did right when I took office was say, I'm not going to accept contributions from people who do business with the county. Many times city and county officials, that's how they raise their money, is from folks who have contracts. But of course, we have millions and billions of dollars in contracts, and I don't even want there to be an appearance of a conflict of interest. So I'm very happy that I've been able to carve out that space. It's going to make it harder for re-election, but it also means that I can make decisions simply based on the information and really not the politics. And people know now not to even call me with, hey, if you don't do this, I'm not going to, do so and so, because they're just not part of my own mental process.
That's a great decision to try to, make your actual decision making and the appearance of your decision making as free from partisan politics or personal political advantage as you possibly can. To try, we have such a trust deficit in our country right now, and trust is the glue that holds any democracy or really any society together. So trying to rebuild that trust, statement by statement, action by action, is absolutely essential. And so let me turn now to you, Representative Nguyen, because of the many things you've done over this past year. Can you look back and maybe share with us, one thing that is particularly important to you, an accomplishment that you're proudest of, something that really sort of staked your political credibility on trying to achieve during this virtual difficult year we've gone through?
Certainly, as elected officials, I think it's hard for us to talk about one thing, but I have to say that, overall, to your point about trust, we can't have trust without information, and information indeed is power. And I have to be honest that without my team and us getting the information, accurate information out there, we can't counter all the fake information that is circulating on the internet and elsewhere. And I think that's especially crucial during the pandemic when there is such a lack of information. We want to make sure that we're getting resources out there to folks, that we are letting folks know that we are here to be helpful, to help with everything from food to unemployment to testing, tracking, and now with vaccination information. And that's exactly what good government is. It's to let people know that we are here, that we can do good, and that we can work with them, and to center people. That is the most important part, is to see what they need and to respond respond to gaps and to make sure we're not leaving anyone behind. We're seeing a lot of health disparities, and the pandemic has really exacerbated many of the issues that we already see in our communities. And so what I'm most proud of is how my team was able to be out there and be responsive. As the judge said earlier, we can't anticipate everything. And so all we can do is prioritize and try to be on top of it as much as we can. And this past year, since the beginning of the year, I was able to work on a bill that I'm particularly proud of, the hate crimes bill, to address the rise in hate crimes. And we did not anticipate that the murder in Atlanta would happen just several weeks after I filed that bill. And since then, since the rise in anti-Asian hate and violence, as well as violence against all vulnerable groups, this bill has really been thrust into the spotlight. And we're now working to make sure that we are holding perpetrators accountable, to signal to communities that we know hate crimes are not meant to not just terrorize individuals, but whole communities, and how we as government need to be there and let communities know that they're not invisible, that we are taking them seriously. And so all of this work is really just a team effort. And I'm just so proud of my team for really stepping up and allowing me to be there for the people during these very difficult times.
Well, that is a great tribute to a team, and every team needs a leader. So it also reflects so well on you, Tram, and what you try to do and what you try to model in your leadership. You know, before we wrap up, and I literally could talk to the three of you for hours, I am so excited to hear from each of you. Just briefly, I want each of you to tell us what gives you hope, particularly what gives you hope that the kind of leadership, who you are, your experiences, how you lead, how you build teams, the kind of leadership you exemplify will continue, and that more leaders like you will be elected and serve at all levels of government. How do you think we can best meet the challenges of this moment in our country's history to help us all move forward? Lina, let me start with you.
Part of it, and we're all in some ways part of this movement that really you started, Secretary, and it's so many of us saw after the 2016 election that we couldn't just have you carry the whole burden, right? And so thousands of women run for office who had never thought of doing it and who wouldn't have otherwise. And just the sheer fact that there are all these folks and we won't feel the full impact of this for a while, it's so exciting. And the problems we are facing have been caused by the old way of doing things. So you're not going to solve them with the old way of thinking or the old way of doing things. It's these new perspectives that are just a beautiful treasure. I'm not going to pretend it's easy or that we've won. I mean, it's still different to be a young woman versus a young man. We all know that. You're just not seen the same way or respected in the same way. We still don't have a female president, but we have a vice president. And, just as much as it was hard for the suffragettes, it's going to be hard for us. I'm here in Texas where there's anti-abortion legislation, where there's anti-woman legislation, anti-families legislation. For me, we're going to keep pushing for women's rights, whether it's the right to choose, whether it's equal pay, whatever it is, we're not giving up. We're on the way. And that's exciting. We're building something. All of us are building something. We're not going anywhere. So I'm not anywhere near giving up. And perhaps it's good that we started a little bit later, a little bit more recently. Is that we're building on the work that's been done, and we're undaunted.
I love that, undaunted. Tram, what would you say?
I have to say that seeing how everyone has come out for one another during this pandemic has really inspired me, and also just gives me so much hope. But especially seeing how engaged our youth is. I am just so blown away with how their commitment, their passion, their dedication to so many different causes, and they're the ones pushing for change. And so our future is bright because we have amazing young people looking to get involved, looking to make change, and looking to make a difference.
Oh, I love hearing that. That's exactly right. And Jennifer, to you for the last word from your perspective.
What gives me hope is groups like this. When women get elected, they don't just stop working to get more women at the table. They open that door and drag people through behind them. And I'm also really excited at the fact that for the last year, people had a deep dive into Civics 101. I heard from folks who never knew who their state representative was or didn't realize there were elections in odd years. And I think it's really exciting to think about the power that can be harnessed if we take this energy from people and move it in the right direction. So I have a lot of hope for the future and a lot of hope to see who is at the table after we are.
Oh, that's such an inspiring way to end this really inspiring conversation. I am thrilled to help bring each of you to wider awareness by people who care about our country, care about what happens next. And, you know, every time I speak with Democratic women leaders, like the three of these amazing young women, I am so excited about the future. Talk about hopeful. I think just look at and listen to these young women and know that the best is yet to come. So I wish each of you all the best. I look forward to continuing this conversation in the next panel, which will feature 3 more of this year's Gabrielle Giffords Rising Star nominees. And I just hope everybody watching is giving you a standing ovation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.